Another duly noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. Okay, and welcome into another duly noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Appreciate everybody for listening and for clicking on. We'll have a couple of great guests today. Matt Hayes will join us, 1010XL. We'll talk to him about the future of Florida, Georgia, and Jacksonville, and also about the Trevor Lawrence, a big contract he just got, and of course, the state of college football. He does a lot of college football writing, and appreciate him. Robbie Andrew will join us as well for Yes, No, Where, Maybe. So that'll be a lot of fun too. And then I'm out the window, or well, I think Karen will let me out the door. But and we're heading out for a little bit. Don't come over here and try to break in. We got people in the house. We got house sitters, so don't even think about that. I think my wife sometimes gets mad because you told people we were on vacation on Twitter. Well, we are. All right, so it's gonna be a short one, but it'll be fun. Today, Matt Hayes is going to join us. As I said, no show on Monday because I'll still be getting back from the South Florida area. And then on Wednesday, we'll do a show because obviously Thursday, we don't want to do a show on the 4th of July for a lot of reasons. You don't want to listen to a show on the 4th of July, probably. But we'll go ahead and get one out early as we can on Wednesday. And that way I'll give you something there for the rest of the week. I got an itchy nose for some reason. And so we'll have that. And then back to Monday, be back on schedule, I think. Be interesting. Today, we will draw a winner in the Leonardo's and Millhopper Quick Picks contest. So we'll get to that in a little bit. And all right, let's move along to our Process Service of Gainesville starting five. The Process Service of Gainesville, Scott Hart, does a great job over there. We appreciate him for being a great sponsor of this podcast. Let's start with number one. And I think the number one story in this town, because I sometimes go by what the callers are saying on the air on our show on the tailgate. I think the biggest story right now is Schlossnagle leaving for Texas. And I think people are just looking at it and going, what in the world, especially after that rebuke he gave the reporter the night of the tournament. Now, here's the thing. Everybody keeps saying there's a way you can handle it. All you had to do is say, this isn't the time or the place to discuss that. Then I would go, oh, but there might be a time or place to discuss it. That would not stop me from writing a story hinted that he may, so who knows what the right way to do it is. I know that wasn't the right way to say you're selfish to ask that question. Well, you're selfish to leave players behind and take double your salary. That makes you selfish. So was a big Schlossnagle fan, maybe not anymore, but he's still in our league. I think everybody's either in our league or the Big Ten. That's all it is. But I did think it was the biggest story of the week. But I will say this. It'll all be forgotten. It'll be brought up again by announcers and stuff, but as soon as he wins a bunch of games at Texas, it'll all be forgotten. Now, the problem I have with it is that immediately, 11 players got in the transfer portal. Now I can tell you Florida's had 10, so it's not like a lot of players do get, but these are star players. This is like their, I always say his name on Laviolette. He's in there. The guy who hit a homer against Florida's in there. There's a bunch of guys in there. The shortstop's in there. So they've got a lot of guys in there. But my concern is not for A&M. I feel bad for them if all those players leave. My concern is that if that's going to be the trend here, and there's nothing to stop those players from going to Texas if he wants them. So how much tampering was done? How much did he know? I mean, did they want? There's just a lot of questions there and not a lot of answers. And that's part of the problem with NIL and the portal. All right, let's move on to number two on the Process Service of Gainesville starting five, which would be the draft. The NBA draft was last night. I didn't watch it. I flipped over for a minute. There was some guy I didn't recognize. I flipped it off. I was surprised at some things, but I think I will say this. There's a guy sitting in Fayetteville right now thinking to himself, this just shows how good a coach I was. And my thing is, this just is an indictment of your coaching ability. You had 2 players taken in the top 8. You lost to Oakland in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Right? I mean, you don't even have the best program in the SEC. You don't. You don't have the best program. Oh, you put the most players in the pros. If that's your only goal, maybe you should say that. Don't cut down the nets ever again. Just don't even let the guys play after the anyway. My Calipari dislike is very intense, as you can tell. But anyway, so a lot of foreign players in the draft. Dalton Knecht goes 17 to the Lakers, and there's a lot of talk that Bronny James is going to get drafted today by the Lakers, and it just feels like they're just letting the inmates run the asylum there, man, because if LeBron is making that decision, that's not a good decision. But if he's making it for selfish reasons, I get it. I certainly get why he would do that. He wants to play with his son. He wants to play with him in the NBA. What a moment that'll be. I think the Griffeys, I can't think of the Boones. Not that many father-sons have played, and certainly not in basketball. Most of us are too old by the time our sons get. Anyway. All right, let's go to number 3. There was this thing on the internet about EA Sports listed the top 25 toughest places to play. And it got a little outrage from Florida fans because they have Florida 10th behind Doak Campbell Stadium. And but look, Florida's 10th for a reason. It says toughest places to play. Haven't been that tough lately. Now, it is, I still think it's one of the loudest in the country. I think my list would go Bryant Denny is the loudest and it's the toughest, but it's the toughest because they're good, right? They listed Kyle Field as the toughest. How can it be? Why are they losing all these games? So it made no sense in a way, but don't worry about it. Just go make a bunch of noise. Don't worry about what EA Sports thinks of you. I'm getting a little bit oversaturated with EA Sports and all these things that keep getting put out about it. Anyway. All right, number 4 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5. I was looking at this today at some of the schedules, and I'm just think before you go, and I'm not going obviously, but before you go to Dallas, those of you who are going for SEC Media Days, or before you fill out a ballot, or if you're an AP voter and pick out, look at the schedules, okay? Because I believe in that. Now, some people say, no, you vote on who you think's the best team. The schedule's irrelevant. I don't believe in that. I don't think that for a second. But there are a couple of schedules I looked at the other day, and like Georgia's schedule is really tough. They got to go to Clemson, or they play Clemson and Mercedes-Benz. They're at Kentucky. They're at Alabama. They're at Texas and Austin. They're at Ole Miss. I don't think that. So that's why I would rate them lower. For example, Ole Miss's schedule is total cupcake, and then they do have to play Georgia, and I think they play Texas, and that's about it. And their schedule's comparatively easy compared to Florida, especially. Anyway, so that's. I think it's important that everybody looks at schedules before they do ratings. Now, again, do any ratings count? No. Nobody. The coaches want to put out a poll, fine. It doesn't matter. But it does have an effect, I think, on those guys in the room. So let's get to number 5 on our process service of Gainesville starting 5, and that is how I would rank right at this moment in time the SEC if I was filling out a top 5. Jeff and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but this is what I would go with. I would go Texas 1, and I would go Ole Miss 2. And that Ole Miss is because of that schedule. It's soft. It's like a baby's butt. It's soft. They play nobody in the non-con, and then So you got 8 conference games, and you dodge a lot of good teams, and they're fine. I put Alabama 3 ahead of Georgia at 4, and that's probably a mistake. Maybe I should flip that around, and then Tennessee at 5. And Tennessee, I think is an X factor team. I mean, there's a lot of X factor teams this year. LSU, Tennessee, Florida, I think is an X factor team. We still aren't sure. Anyway, all right, that's going to do it for our process service at Gainesville starting 5. We'll take a break, come back. Maddie Hayes will join us here on the another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios.
Process Service of Gainesville offers a rapid turnaround on affidavits of service for Gator lawyers locally and nationwide. Our friend Scott Hart offers immediate responses on status requests and is a member of NAPS and FAPS. And he has been a part of the community for almost 2 decades. Need service? Call Process Service of Gainesville at 407-697-9592 or email shartgators, that's G8TR, at yahoo.com. And make sure you ask about the paralegal legal secretary bonus program.
Adams Rib Company has been a staple of Gainesville for more than a decade and a staple of the Dooley house ever since Kelsey's teeth came in. The first time I walked into Adams, I told my daughter that the green beans are always a test of a great barbecue restaurant, and they were perfect. You know about the ribs that melt in your mouth, and my favorite, the turkey plate. But be sure to go in on Fridays for Nana's Fish Nuggets. They will melt in your mouth. Adams Rib Co., a Gainesville great.
Meldon Law has been serving personal injury victims since 1971. In those days, Jeffrey Meldon's presence as an attorney in the music scene dubbed him with the nickname the Hippie Attorney. And although times have changed, 2 things haven't. Our commitment to bettering our community by helping the injured.
Albert, are you ready to go to the game?
And our love for the Florida Gators.
If you bleed orange and blue, Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Okay, welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And it's a great pleasure to bring on my buddy Matt Hayes. Of course, Matt and I go back to the olden days of covering the Gators and walking the streets of Syracuse, New York, slapping up 2 pieces of pizza together and eating them because we had the munchies so bad.
Those were the good days, baby.
They were the good days. And of course, if you can hear Matt on 1010XL, you're on 2 to 4. 2 to 4,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then you can read him at Saturday Down South. So he's a Renaissance man in a way.
In a way.
Well, first of all, I got people a little stirred up last week when I was on your show. We started talking about Florida, Georgia, and I mean, I don't know what's going to happen there, and I don't know if anybody really knows what's going to happen. We all know the city's going to throw a bunch of money at them, but so are a lot of other cities. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the brand new stadium, they're calling it the Stadium of the Future, Pat, has been approved. It was approved 2 nights ago. This place is hopping now. It's almost like when they got the team. Now they now have this team for another 30 years, which is really cool. And they're excited about it. They're excited about not only for the Jaguars, but to get into the college football tournament, they call it the playoff, whatever you want to call it. Okay, the college football playoff, the semifinals, and they can now bid for that. They can now bid for the championship game. So they're very excited about what's to come. Obviously, the Florida-Georgia game is critical. Look, I think at the end of the day, Georgia and Florida, it's going to be strictly a monetary decision. And in this day and age of where everybody's looking for revenue, find new revenue ways to generate revenue, I don't know how you turn down money from a city that wants you to play their neutral every year that you've been doing for 7, 8 decades. I look at this, Pat, and it's going to be, they'll throw some stupid number out there at them, like offer them $6-7 million each to play there. And then Florida and Georgia's decision is, do I want to make $14 million every 2 years on this game by playing in a neutral site, or make whatever Florida draws for a home weekend, $3 million, $4 million?
I don't think it's that much. Yeah.
Right. Every 2 years.
In terms of net revenue, yeah.
Right. So it's really not even a question. If you're looking for revenue, this is it. If the idea, it's philosophical. If the idea is screw revenue, we get enough money from the SEC and the media rights deals, we want a home game, then that's what you'll do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's going to be interesting because whatever happens, they're going to have to play those 2 games somewhere. Okay. So maybe
Right.
they get to the Mercedes-Benz one year and another stadium another year, and they're kind of excited about it. I don't know.
I'd be shocked. I mean, wouldn't you think they'd go campus?
Well,
My guess is they're gonna go
I
campus.
would think they did. Now, it didn't turn out very good for Georgia the last time they did that.
Well, I mean, I'm saying I would think they'd go campus, but it's the same thing literally as playing in
You're going to make more money going to neutral site. Yeah.
You can get Orlando to pay you $5-6 million or $7 million, and Atlanta to do the same thing. Why wouldn't you do that? Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the state of college football, because every day you're getting asked about it. Every day, I'm sure you can't go to get a 6-pack of beer at the grocery store without somebody saying, "What about that NIL?" It's gotten to a point where a lot of times I go, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we're going to look like in 5 years.
It's you know what, Pat? I think what they're hoping, and again, this is the hope. The hope is that pay for play kind of eliminates all this movement, and it's not about the NIL and the money. And I think almost 99% of coaches will tell you that their problem isn't with the money. It's not with the money, the kids making money. It's player movement. That's the problem. And they can go whenever they want, wherever they want. And that's what they want, because they don't know how to deal with their roster. They don't know how to build their roster. Their roster is changing. Used to change rarely every year. Now it's literally week by week. And I think if they can get to a point where they're paying players and they can come up with some sort of contract, okay, so paying players is going to happen maybe as soon as next year. If you can come up with some kind of contract that limits movement, however it's done, if it's, if you leave, then you forfeit this money or you owe this money. However it's done, if they can come up with a deal that limits movement, I think that's what's going to be key to the college football moving forward. Now, that being said, it's difficult to watch coaches leave and go, come and go as they please, whenever they want. Jim Schlossnagle is the perfect example. He's hours, minutes after losing to Tennessee in a gut-wrenching College World Series, says he loves Texas A&M, he's not going anywhere, and he rips a reporter because, Duels, it's always the mean media's fault. Always.
Yeah.
Always. And, 12 hours later, he's a Texas coach. So, I mean, you can complain about this if you're a fan watching and saying, oh, these players, all they want is money. The coaches are the same thing. There's no difference. It's the same thing. So it is what it is, and you move forward and you enjoy it. It's a great sport. It's never been more popular. It's now the number 2 sport in America. I think it's not even close by far, ahead of the other pro sports. It's the NFL, then college football. Mm-hmm. And it's such a small window. It used to be 3 months. Now it's 4 months with the expanded playoff. Just enjoy those 4 months, man. Enjoy it and be happy in it.
What do you think it's going to be like when we get that first, not the first one, but the first final 12-team playoff? I mean, how much bitching and moaning, or is this going to be like I always say this about the NCAA tournament. Everybody complains on Tuesday or on Sunday night and Monday, and then on Tuesday let's just go play basketball.
I think they'll be complaining. I think they'll definitely be complaining a lot, like there is with the 4 teams. But I will say this, and I think people don't understand this, is the key to this 12-team deal, which will be 14 in 2026, by the way. That's the key to this deal is when you're in November, the first week in November, typically in the 4-team playoff, you might have 7 or 8 teams that have a chance. Maybe. Okay. In this new deal, you may have 30 or 40.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I think, that the games in November, we used to always say, oh, college football's great because every week matters, every game matters. Wait till you see those November games now.
No, that's more games matter now.
Yes,
that's what I'm trying to tell people. More games.
And here's another thing too. And here's another negative that people say, well, it's still going to be the same 4 teams. You know what? If you've got to play 2 more games to win a national championship, that's 2 more games where, heaven forbid, your star quarterback goes down, possibility of going down, or you have a key injury, or you have a key problem, something happens, all right? Or the team that you're playing plays out of its mind like teams do. More chances on the field are more chances for losses for those elite teams. So I wouldn't say, oh, it's still going to be Georgia in the end or Georgia and Ohio State. There's a lot of wiggle room, or in your world, Duels, how you always like to say, there's a lot of green left in that putt once there's 12 teams in the playoff.
Chicken on the bone, man. Chicken on the bone. Yeah, that's the thing with college football. I'm like, I still think it's idiot proof. Okay. I still think no matter how they kind of screw it up, I'm going to watch it every Saturday. And I love when I see that there are all kinds of different games going on. And that's going to be the weirdest part for me, though, is I have to remind myself sometimes that Texas and Oklahoma are now in the SEC. But I still have a hard time remembering that Rutgers is in the Big Ten. I mean, or in Maryland, I mean, it's like,
That was a tough one.
they're tough. They're tough to kind of go through. But now it's Texas. Just it's become a Texified league.
Yeah, if there ever were a sport that was bulletproof, it's this one. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't know that they can do anything that would harm it. And they've done a lot of dumb stuff in the last 3 or 4 years. and even the last 30, 40 years, going all the way back to limiting how much money, grad assistants would make. Remember that lawsuit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how much it was, 40 million back then, but that was a lot of money back then. And then, every other misstep that they've lost in court, every single court case in the history of court cases with the NCAA they've lost. So I think it's hard to say there's going to be a problem with this thing moving forward. I can't see it. I look at them moving more toward the NFL, which I know a lot of us purists may not be too happy about. But I also think, Duels, it allows it to grow more because you then you have an annual schedule. Like the NFL, everything happens on a schedule. It's the combine. It's free agency. It's mini camp. It's OTAs. It's training camp. You know what I mean? It's all on a schedule. And I think college football could be on a similar schedule where you can start to televise these things. The draft is one of the most watched things, the NFL draft, one of the most watched things of the year in sports. How is that even possible to draft?
Yeah.
It's a draft of guys who may or may not come out. Right. So, I mean, if I'm college football and I'm Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti, and I'm thinking, wait, how do we monopolize that? How do we get that and say, okay, how do we deal with signing day like that? How do we deal with the portal like that? How do you do that? To me, I think that's the fascinating thing moving forward is how do they deal with that? And more importantly, the NFL with training camps, Duels. I mean, HBO does Hard Knocks. Now they're doing it, I think, with 3 teams from the NFC East. How cool would it be to see a Hard Knocks on a college campus?
Yeah.
And
Well, they did that 1 year with Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, HBO's not the only people that are going to do that. Amazon would try, Hulu would try. There's so many avenues out there right now for teams to find a way to highlight the game or highlight the programs themselves.
You know what job one for college football, though, is to have one organization in charge of it. And right now, with it all spread out, with all different rules here, different rules there, they can do this here, they can do this in this state, not in that state. We got to get this thing. I agree with the czar theory that there would be one guy in charge of it, like there is in the NCAA, but they would just be a better run, more efficient organization.
In fact, I'm going to say right now that I think Jeremy Foley should run it. That's what I think. But he's very happy right now in retirement. Yeah. But I think he should. You need a guy like that to come out and to be a guy who says, "All right, here's what we're doing." And it doesn't mean that you have to share the media rights revenue. Which, by the way, if the Big Ten and the SEC shared those rights and they played like the AFC and the NFC, my God, the money they would make out of that is ridiculous. But it doesn't mean you have to do that. You can still have your own media rights deals, but you're under one umbrella, sort of like the NCAA. It's more like quasi NCAA because these guys all have their own rules right now. That's the way they want it.
Right.
That's fine. But to your point, yes, there's got to be some kind of regulated idea of, okay, here's how contracts are done. Here's the lengths. Here's how it limits movements. And NILs can be X. Now, you can't limit a player's NIL money that they make. There's no doubt about that. But you could put in some ideas of, okay, if you make NIL at some point, if it hits to this point, then it starts to negate from what you're making from the media. Right. I don't even know if they could do that either. But if you can come up with some kind of guide for the entire, however many teams there are, and we still don't know how many teams they're going to be. Right now, it's a power 2 is what it looks like. Mm-hmm. But if you come up with a guide for that to kind of like move this along as easy as possible, because right now there's stuff here, there, and it's a little bit haywire right now. I guess is the best way to say it.
And when people talk about the Wild Wild West, it was going to be the Wild Wild West. Well, it is because there's no rules around it. There were no rules in the Wild Wild West.
We don't like to say rules, Duels.
You
They
threw
will
up a
not say
bottle of
rules.
whiskey and shot it.
They will say guidelines, or they will say, what are the rails? We put rails.
Memos.
They come up with some rails. The best part about this entire last 3 or 4 years, the best part of our rules was the coaches. It's unsustainable. Well, it is sustainable. In fact, it keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before I let you go, I want to ask you, because I'm sure you've gotten some calls on this on your show on 1010XL about Trevor Lawrence's big deal. What are your thoughts about that?
It's time for him to play. I think he's got a lot of talent. A lot of talent. I don't know if they helped him that much in free agency. The offensive line is really, really average. But yeah, it's time for him to play. I've said this many times that a great quarterback will make other guys better. It doesn't mean the guys can be terrible, but a great quarterback, you can get away with a lot. The margin for error increases with a great quarterback. Because if you look at the Chiefs, their receivers were average. But when you got Mr. Magic back there, anything can happen.
Yeah, he's really something. That's my guy now, Mahomes. So just so you know. All right, Matty Hayes, we're going to let you go, and you say hello to John Lennon behind you there for me, because that's my guy too. So.
The legend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks a lot for being on the show. We'll be back with more of another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios after this.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Another Duly Noted podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point. You can watch and listen to us on Facebook and YouTube for every podcast that we do on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Overcast, any of the other 39 platforms where you can find this podcast or your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below or call me if you want to do some advertising at 352-317-3444. Okay, welcome back to another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Dooley Studios. It's always great. We haven't had Robbie on in a couple of weeks, so it's good to have him on. He's ready to fire up and do a yes, no, where, maybe. How you doing, Robbie?
Good, Pat. How are you?
I'm good.
Vacation's coming.
I know. I'm gonna try not to agonize over the long drive down there that Karen's got to make, and I'm just gonna. She's got a book for us to listen to.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know what
good.
it is yet, though.
Yeah, we've talked about getting a book too to listen to, but we'll see.
Hopefully, it'll be Ball 4. I could listen to that again.
Yeah, me too. A lot of good cussing.
I still can't believe Jeff Cardozo has never read Ball 4.
How could he was a pitcher.
I know. He lives and breathes baseball. It's got so many great things in it. I still quote him all the day, but he doesn't like to read. I don't know how he buys food. He can't even look at the, this looks like it might be spaghetti.
He doesn't read. I've never heard of such a thing.
Well,
who is it that doesn't
that degree he got from Florida, right?
Yeah. Who is it that doesn't eat salads?
Oh, that's Heath Klein. Yeah.
No, he's never eaten a salad.
Never eat one. Will never eat one. Doesn't see the point.
And he doesn't like Steely Dan.
No, that's bad too. Yeah.
That's the combination for you.
I think those would be deal breakers if I was looking for a spouse. Just like smoking was a deal breaker. And then luckily for me, a certain individual quit smoking just in time for me to start dating her.
I know. That worked out well.
25 years later, here we are.
Well, for you, I don't know about her.
That's a good point. All right, it's time to play yes, no way, or maybe. Of course, Robbie's coming to you on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line, and Big Mills Cheesesteak is a sponsor for yes, no way, or maybe, and we always have a lot of fun with it. I think that it's kind of our funnest feature, maybe, or most fun, I guess, would be the exact word.
Is that a word, funnest?
Funnest. Yeah, that's right. All right, Robbie, are you ready? Here we go.
Yeah.
Number one, you can't believe that Dalton Connect went all the way down on the 17th pick to the Lakers.
A little bit, Pat, maybe. But you never know with the NBA draft. I mean, there's so many foreign players in there that it's hard for a guy like me or you to judge where somebody might go. But yeah, I'm a little bit, maybe surprisingly went that low, but a good pick for the Lakers. I'll say that. I mean, they've got to love that.
I think he fits into JJ Redick's plan too, because that's I mean, he's a stronger version of JJ Redick, but They said that some of the scouts were saying he plays no D, which I could have told them that. You don't need scouts for that. I watched him. He was playing Walter Clayton D all year.
Yeah, but Pat, did Larry Bird play defense? I mean,
no.
You look at the highlights of him; it was all offense, and that's what this guy is all about. And that's what the NBA is about: scoring.
I know,
going up and down the floor and scoring.
Scoring the most points usually will win you the game.
Usually that works out the way you want it to.
All right, I agree with you on maybe on that. Yeah, but I was a little surprised because some people had him as high as 10th.
Yeah, a little bit, not hugely surprised.
Yeah. All right, number 2 on yes, nowhere, maybe brought to you by Big Mills Cheesesteak. Robbie, you are excited to see that the United States has got new Speedos that they've released just in time for you to go on vacation and wear them up in the mountains.
No way, Pat. And that's an emphatic no way. 1, I don't care. 2, I would never wear such a thing. And if I did, I should be arrested or whatever. Or Jill would never talk to me again.
Well, we were telling a story the other night about that included something like around that area.
Yeah, and we were. It turns out everybody's had a similar experience, I guess.
Yeah, it does happen to you. All right, and finally, number 3, you have been fooled by this. You look down and you see Georgia beats or Georgia loses to, and then you find out it's Georgia, the sovereign state or whatever over there in Russia. And you're going, well, that doesn't mean anything.
So I'd say yes, Pat. That's you were hoping that Georgia would be losing at something, but it's the wrong Georgia. So
they should change their name.
Yeah, that's too big of a tease, Pat, to say Georgia loses. We love to hear that, but we never hear that anymore, except
it's
for the
true,
other.
Though, isn't it, that there is a cup, some kind of cup being played for at all times in soccer. At all times, there's a gold cup, a coffee cup, a Copa Cup, a World Cup. There's always a cup being played for.
There really is, Pat. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well,
what about the Stanley Cup taking a dip in the Atlantic Ocean the other day? That was pretty cool.
Yeah. That Stanley Cup has some good stories. If only
it won't rust, will it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
You're going to find out.
On it. Yeah. All right, Robbie, we'll let you go.
Okay, Pat. Enjoy your vacation.
I will. Appreciate it. All right. Great having Robbie on. And now we will move on to this, that, and the other here on another Duly Noted podcast. This, that, and the other is brought to you by Darshakow Insurance, by Ballyhoo Grill, where we spent a little time the other night, and by Ironwood Golf Course. Let's start with this, and this is one of the first stories that I broke in my life. The first story I ever broke was that they were redoing Doug's Rug back, and I was a student. Then in 1980, I was working for had worked for a lot of people. And I'm walking through I always like to walk through the stadium. I just love football. I love the stadium so much. So I always like to walk through it to class instead of going around. And I walk through it and I go, hey, they're practicing down there. This is like February. I said, they're practicing down there. And I look up and there are all these coaches in the stands watching them. Florida coaches. couple of them waved to me. How you doing, Pat? You can't do that. It was illegal. It was a huge deal. And we made a big deal of it. I think they lost some scholarships or something because of it. Look, I mean, again, well, I'm not trying out to get Florida, but when you're that blatant about violating the rules, those things are going to happen. So that is that we graduated to this area where it became, well, there's too many guys with headsets on. We need to restrict the number of people with headsets. And so they cut it down to, I think it's 9 in addition to your staff can wear. There's so many, all these crazy rules, and they're all archaic, as you know. And the other is what has happened now, and that is that the oversight committee has recommended, which usually goes right through, that that's not going to be an issue anymore, that anybody can coach anytime they want. They're just taking the gloves off everything and saying, look, we can't keep worrying about this little crap. We need to come into this century, which the NCAA has not been in a long time. And we need to be able to put rules together that'll make it easier for our coaches and our players and our fans. I mean, we got to try to figure that out. So at least they're finally moving forward. Maybe Charlie Baker, the new head of the NCAA, has got some ideas, which would be a first, instead of just going, we're an amateur sport. The players can't have any of the money. This is what we do. Anyway. All right. So let's move on to, that is This, That, and the Other today. Brought to you by Ironwood, Darth Shakow, and by Ballyhoo Grill. Let's move to our Leonardo's Quick Picks poll. We're going to make a poll right now. Zach, I gave you the numbers. It was 10 to 71. Somewhere in there is the winning number. Let me get the sheet out here.
10 to 71.
Somewhere in that area.
Let's go 52.
52. That's a good number because 52 to 20, as we all know. Okay, that is Jason Wilson. Jason Wilson, not Jason Williams. I wouldn't give it to him because he's got enough money. But Jason Wilson, and he will win a $25 gift certificate at Leonardo's, as well as a choice. He can have a signed copy of my book, Game of My Life, that I've got. I'm sitting propping up my ring light on right now, but I'll pull it out for him. He could have a hat from this year's Bob Dooley Invitational, or a hat from last year's Bob Dooley Invitational, or he could have a copy of Patrick Young's book signed. So all those things are on the plate for him. All he's got to do is tell me which one he wants. Email me. I know you know my email address because that's where you sent it. But congratulations to Jason Wilson for winning our latest Leonardo's at Millhopper poll. We'll start another contest when I get back on Wednesday. And we have to be very creative because it's not the time of year when there's a lot going on. One of them may just be, I know that one will be the week of the SEC Media Days. One will be, where's Florida going to get picked? Because that, to me, is interesting. We'll talk about that as we go forward during the year. All right, let us move on to our Adams Rib Company Gator of the Week. And Adams does such a great job. I know he cut a new commercial too for our radio show too. So, man, what a great dude. All right, and here's our Gator of the Week. Gators, I guess you should say, and that is everybody, the whole program. And here's why. And I'm counting everything. Now, I will say, football, you didn't contribute a whole lot. However, you did contribute a whole lot in terms of all the money you generated with all the sellouts, which pay for all these sports. But in terms of wins and losses and finishes, not so much. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is the Adams Rib Co. Gator of the Week is everybody. Everybody over there, everybody who a trainer, everybody's a strength coach, everybody who does anything over there, because Florida finished 4th in the country, which is usually, that's about where it's behind Texas, behind Stanford. I think I'm trying to remember who else was ahead of them. But it's, Stanford has a lot of sports, but They have the same problem. They can't get their football thing going. But anyway, to finish fourth again, even with a bad football team, and basketball didn't maybe do as good as we thought they would. Women's basketball, I'm talking about. And there were some other sports like tennis was not at the level that it, but hey, that happens. Everything cycles through, in terms of how many conference championships you won. Florida had 11 teams finish in the top 5 in the nation. That's the most of any school. That is worth an award in itself. But anyway, they finished 4th in the Learfield Cup. So all the Gator athletes and all the coaches and all the trainers and everybody who works over there, all the PR people, you are our Gator Athletes of the Week, sponsored by Adams Rib Company. Let's move on to our Hesser and Kipke 3 things. Hesser and Kipke, of course, is a Gainesville law firm specializing in the areas of family law and workers' compensation. If you're a loyal listener to this show, you know who we are by now. If not, Google the firm, check out the reviews, and hear what our clients have to say. Ken and Jennifer can be reached 24/7 via call or text at 352-339-9920. 352-339-9920. That's Hesser and Kipke. Let's look at 3 things today. One of them is this conversation I keep hearing on a lot of these college talk shows, college sports talk shows, about the whole ACC and the FSU thing, and it feels like now it's become like Thanos, man. It's become inevitable. Like, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of how long it takes, how much they have to pay to get out, how it works out. Is there a compensation to some other way? Maybe they trade players and coaches. I don't know, but it's gonna happen, and that when that does happen, it looks like FSU and Clemson will head for the Big Ten. Now, my first reaction is good. I don't care about Clemson coming in, but I don't want FSU in this conference. But think about it. Maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And all I'm saying is playing a little devil's advocate here and saying, hey guys, really, do you want to lose? You're going to have to play FSU anyway. Make it a conference game. Do you want to lose FSU and Clemson to the Big Ten? Now, I will say this: the other side of that argument is neither TV market's anything special. They're very, Tallahassee's bigger than Clemson, but they're not anything worth writing home about. And you already got footprints in both states. So it would make sense for them not to worry about it. And then you have to divide the pie a little more. So it's going to be a fascinating thing to watch as we go through I would like to say this summer, but probably this summer and next summer and the summer after that. It's not going to happen overnight, believe me. But it does seem like it's inevitable. I'm inevitable. All right, let's, that's the other thing. Be careful to what you wish for. Be careful to go, I don't want Clemson in here. And then Clemson goes there, and now they've got trillions of dollars because the Big Ten money's better, and they get even more powerful. See, anyway, there's an argument to be made. Go ahead and bring them in here. Keep them over there on the side. That's just one of my thoughts. All right, let's get to number 2 on 3 things. And that is that, of course, we talk about the portal a lot, and we knew that there would be some attrition from this Florida baseball team. The biggest attrition, of course, being the guy who plays first base. But 10 Gators in the portal, including Michael Robertson. Now, Robertson could come back. He's graduated. He's married. He may be ready to move on with his life. But he may want to see if somebody's like, hey, man, we could use a slick feeling, no hit center fielder. And you do get hits that mean something. You had one of the biggest hits, sent your team to the College World Series. So yeah, we've seen that video. We'll give you X, and he goes, good, cool. So I don't know what he's going to do there. But Florida, clearly Florida has hit the portal as well. And if you see the kid, Lewis, I think it is, from Stetson, will be their center fielder next year. And that's why Michael got in there, I'm sure. Had a lot to do with it. But it's not like attrition because people are fleeing. It's because they ain't playing here. Well, I always talk about those exit interviews. Sometimes they truly are exit interviews. Yeah, we'd like you to exit, but if you want to stay, we have a place for you. You're probably not going to play, and your scholarship's going to get reduced. Don't think that doesn't happen every day in every sport. Although you can't reduce football scholarships and basketball scholarships. All right, and finally on Hesser and Kipke, three things. I've told you the story before about this young golfer, Miles Russell, who played in the Bob Dooley a couple of years ago with Bill Cressman and his group, and Bill Cressman's son knows him in Jacksonville. He's a kid from Jacksonville. He's 15 years old, and he's playing in his first PGA Tour event this week, Rocket Classic. I can't wait to watch him play. I hope we get to see a little bit of him. But that's what we do with the Bob Dooley. We put you on the tour. Think about how fast he got on there. It's going to be fun to watch him. Lefty too, so that'll be fun to watch. And it'll give you something to watch. Which brings us, and that is our Hesser and Kipke three things. That brings us to our Swamp Games of the weekend to wrap things up. We'll always have this for you because there's always something on. You know that. So let's just talk about baseball right now. Saturday, 4:10, Cubs and the Brewers are at the Brewers, FS1, 7:15. Dodgers at the Giants on Fox. Sunday, you have a game between the Rangers. We can watch a little Wyatt Langford, who's seems to have heated up a little bit, hit a grand slam the other night. Texas at Baltimore, which is, of course, a great team, 7 o'clock, and that's on ESPN. So that's the Sunday night ESPN game. You also have the Rocket Mortgage, which I mentioned, golf tournament. It might be good. I'm not begging you to watch it. I'm just telling you what's on. 3 to 6 is the CBS coverage. So if you're bored and looking for something to watch, that looks good. I think one thing you will be interested in is gymnastics on Friday and Sunday. Gymnastics, the men are on the other days, but I'm not watching men's gymnastics. I couldn't care less about that. But women's gymnastics, obviously, we have people involved in it, so we want to watch that. And that is 8 to 10 on Friday, and then Sunday it's on 8:30 to 11. So, yeah, so we'll have a day off in between then. And also, Parker Valby will be running Saturday in the 10,000 meters. I know she didn't qualify in the 1,500, was it the 5,000? She didn't qualify. But if the girls who did qualify decide they'd rather go in the 1,500 and they both qualify there, she could get in still. So I heard, like I said, her journey's not over yet. Let's just put it that way. All right. That's going to do it for another Duly Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Just hope my wife doesn't talk me into going parasailing, because all I can think about is that movie where I think that was the third Jurassic Park when they got the parasailer. He's not with us anymore. Anyway, but until next time, until Wednesday of next week, I am Pat Dooley. I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.